Since the very beginning of Marvel Snap, lockdown decks have been one of the most popular decks to play on the ladder. They have a very high win rate, but aren't necessarily so good at winning those 8 cube victories. Recently in Marvel Snap, these lockdown decks have started to look very different. We saw a period where Thanos lockdown decks were especially popular, and more recently, high evolutionary lockdown has been the way to go. However, last month, I was a huge believer in playing a lockdown deck without either of these cards and just including lots of really good value cards. The current meta is more different than ever, with Loki all over the place and the meta feeling really weird. And that really begs the question, what is the best lockdown deck in Marvel Snap right now? And in today's video, we're going to be answering exactly that. So Storm, of course, is a staple card. She's going to lock down the location nice and early, and cards which help you win a Storm lane are also really important, but we'll talk a little bit more about those later. Professor X is that other key lockdown card, coming down on turn number 5, but it can often backfire if you're playing him without knowing where your opponent will play. That is, of course, where Daredevil comes into the mix. Playing him down on turn 2 sets you up to allow you on turn 5 to see exactly where your opponent is going to be playing their cards. Sunspot is going to be soaking up all that energy in this deck. Absolutely phenomenal. Great into the Storm lane, great into the Professor X lane, and also can be a serious threat into a lane when neither of those cards are in play as well. Professor X is also protecting Sunspot from Killmonger, which is a nice little bit of synergy. The Nebula as well is Sunspot's partner in crime in this deck. Does a lot of the same things very well as Sunspot, great in a flooded lane and great in a Professor X lane as well. Jeff is, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the shark in this deck. I think a lot of people overestimate how good Jeff is. Of course, it's a great card, but in lockdown, make no mistake, Jeff is the king of lockdown decks. The only card you're able to play into a flooded location or a location locked down by Professor X, and that is, of course, going to be farming you many 8-cube victories where your opponent just doesn't see the Jeff coming. Not to mention the movement mechanic with Jeff is just extraordinary in lockdown decks. Because we're locking down the board early, the point levels that the locations are won by is going to be smaller than the average game of Marvel Snap. This means that 3 points that Jeff has is even more significant on these locked down locations, because it's often going to be the difference between losing or winning a location. And finally, the new addition, the new staple into lockdown decks, which I think you're going to be wanting to play in every single lockdown deck, is the new card Alioth. It's gone into Series 5, so it is costing you quite a bit, but my goodness, this card is great in lockdown decks. You've already got one lane secured going into turn 6, that's the idea, either with Storm or Professor X, and Alioth then is just going to be that way to secure the second and final location necessary for victory. However, there is quite a lot of nuances with this card you need to bear in mind. Fighting for initiative is going to be winning or losing you a lot of games. So if you're going into turn 6 behind, where your opponent has the initiative, they're playing first, and you both play Alioth into the same location, well, whoever has initiative will win, and their Alioth will destroy the other. So you really need to be paying attention who has initiative going into turn 6, and that is something we'll be talking about a little bit more when we make some decisions over the rest of the cards in the decks. Okay, now let's zoom in on these 3 different versions, talking about the advantages, the disadvantages, and what the lists look like of each. Let's start off with High Evolutionary. It's the fantastic, perfect fit for lockdown deck, particularly because of Cyclops and Misty Knight popping off. Also, having an Evolved Hulk has always been a huge addition to these lockdown decks. Previously, lockdown just didn't have that good turn 6 play to secure the bag, but with an Evolved Hulk, it does. However, as I just mentioned, Alioth is now a serious option, in fact, an auto-include option, in my opinion, in a lockdown deck, if you have it, and therefore I think that the Evolved Hulk is less appealing. And of course, that's also going to have an impact on how appealing High Evolutionary is, because you're only really getting that Cyclops and the Misty Knight from High Evolutionary now. Of course, you could also play the Wasp, but it's really not that much better than a Yellow Jacket in a normal deck. Another big disadvantage of High Evolutionary decks is the fact that you just draw this High Evolutionary card in hand and it is pretty much useless. That is particularly important in a lockdown style deck where you really want to just be getting as many points on the board as early as possible. However, a huge advantage High Evolutionary has right now is against Loki. Loki is one of the most popular decks in Marvel Snap right now, and High Evolutionary is the perfect counter to Loki, of course, because while you have a Cyclops which has got an evolved ability, their Cyclops is just going to be a standard, boring, useless Cyclops. Thanos is also a very interesting fit for lockdown decks for a variety of different reasons. One of these reasons is that board space is less of a premium in these decks, and what I mean by that is having 3 stones into one location isn't going to be a problem if you lock it down early with Professor X or Storm. Whereas if you imagine you've got 3 stones into one single location in a normal deck, it's going to be pretty difficult to win that location. You're going to have to commit something big to that location like a dinosaur or a Thanos, and even then it might not be enough. Another advantage Thanos gives you in a lockdown deck is the Time Stone. Time Stone can come down on turn number 3, meaning you have 5 energy on turn number 4, allowing you to surprise your opponent with a premature Professor X. This is particularly devastating if you can play your Professor X into a location with a bunch of stones, a sunspot, or a nebula. However, a big disadvantage of Thanos is that your lockdown deck is suddenly a 18 card deck with those 6 Infinity Stones added into the mix. I think it's 6. Is it 5? Big disadvantage of Thanos, though, is that your 17 card deck is going to be a lot less consistent. You're adding those Infinity Stones into the deck, and therefore it's much less likely that you find Storm on 3, Professor X on 5. And of course, the third option, which has been my favorite in the last month, is to just play value. Don't play either of these cards. However, this deck is really bad against Loki, and I tried to tweak the deck to improve the matchup against Loki, but it was to little effect. Here are a bunch of other great cards in lockdown decks, some of which we're playing in our list, some which we aren't. Legion is amazing as just a mid-range value card, but it also opens up the Storm on turn 4 play. You can go Storm on turn 4, Legion on turn 5, and this is particularly strong with Daredevil. Nightcrawler is really good as well. A lot of people love Jeff and really just forget about Nightcrawler. Okay, it dies to Killmonger, fair enough. There's not many of those at the moment. Okay, you can't play it into those locked down locations, but that ability to be able to move a couple of points across the board on turn 6 is so valuable. And Nightcrawler becomes even better when you pair it with Jeff, because suddenly you have 5 points of floating movement, which is just absolutely impossible for your opponent to pin down where you're going to be ending up most of the time. Claw is one of the most underrated cards in the game, and this is where it is most at home. With Alioth entering the mix as an option for lockdown decks, I did end up cutting Claw from some of my decks. However, I just think it's an amazing option and it's a great way of winning 8 cubes. Psylocke is an option similar to the Time Stone, where you can ramp early into Professor X. Jug is great at winning the Storm lane and is also a fantastic option to win the game on turn 6. If you have one lane secured with Professor X, your Jug can go into a different location, push everything away that your opponent played into the location you don't care about. However, this does feel significantly worse now that Alioth has been released, because Alioth is doing a very similar thing to Jug in this sense. It's winning you the lane, but Jug is now losing to your opponent's Alioth a lot of the time, which is going to feel particularly bad. Armor is great in a Killmonger heavy meta, and of course is going to be protecting your Sunspot, your Nebula, perhaps your Misty Knight as well. Ebony Maw is an interesting one to consider. It's high risk and feels quite clunky, but it gives you so many points early on, and you definitely shouldn't underestimate this card. If you pair Ebony Maw with cards like Nightcrawler, Jeff, and Claw, it doesn't feel quite so bad. And the other thing I want to mention with this is Ebony Maw is helping you win that fight for initiative in Alioth Mirrors. By getting those 7 points down on the board early, it's more likely going into turn 6, you're going to have initiative, you're going to be going first, and therefore in an Alioth Mirror, you're going to be the one that's winning. Finally, Silk and Lizard, and just any card like this really, which is just good value. Good cheap cards which can go into either the Storm or the Professor X lane are going to be great options. Did I forget to mention your favorite lockdown card? Write down in the comments below if I did, and let me know what it is. We're going to go into some gameplay now, looking at each of the different decks, and at the end of the video we're going to have a conclusion over which deck is the best right now. Start off with a good old Sunspot. And we can try and fill the Sacred Timeline, I suppose. Why not? We also have the option of going for a Storm. Storm into Strange Academy is going to be the most likely play. Obviously feels a bit bad not to Storm our Sunspot lane, but then also like Strange Academy just gives them a way of winning this location anyway. I think we might go for the Storm on 4, honestly. Just Storm Strange Academy. Let's fill up the Sacred Timeline. I'm going to snap it as well. Getting another Sunspot, another Nightcrawler, and I think it's another Jeff as well. Yeah. Not the end of the world. They did hit the swarm, so they have a whole bunch of swarms to play, which is, I'm really liking the look of Jug. To the left here. We'll put the Sunspot down there as well, just in case they play something left this turn. And this is where we need to have a fight for initiative, right? If we have initiative going into turn 6, then Eliath is winning us the game. However, if we don't have initiative, we can easily lose against another Eliath. I don't fear Eliath from my opponent's deck in discard, in fairness. It's good with like Sif discarding the most expensive card. It's very, very unlikely they actually play it. So in this particular matchup, it's not something we need to consider too much. Yeah, it's true. I shouldn't have given them Professor X info in the last game. It's a fair point. But I mean, it's fairly obvious with the Daredevil anyway, right? But that's a good point. Giving info up is definitely not worth doing. Should have just gone next, right? And not played any more cards. It's a really good point on Distortion. So they go double mid, so we don't even need to think about Jug. Unless we want to actually Jug this ourselves. We're already ahead to the left. One concern with Eliath to the right is Dracula, right? So we really actually want to try and fight for the middle. But again, the Dakin could grow. So it's a pretty weird spot to be in here. One thing we could do is we could flipping like Jug these away and try and... It's just also risky. I don't really know how I want to play this one out. I actually snap it, which is really curious. So playing 7 stats, they're at 11. I think this might work. Dakin left is a little scary. If they both go left, we might be screwed, but I think we're fine. We found the line. That definitely wins it. That certainly wins it. This is where our life just cleans up, right? Nice. Dakin going leftwards very scary for us, though. But we could do some floating, right? So we would have to have discarded it, so... I think we were pretty much bang on there. The Ebony Maw is interesting. Play it on 3 or 2. It's going to change the way we play the whole game, really, right? Yep. They haven't played anything on 2, so they missed Morbius. We haven't seen their Morbius, but it's safe to assume they have it, I think. Take the Ebony Maw now. This is like basically what you want to do with Ebony Maw, right? Just like fill up a location early on. Of course, like the Nightcrawler and Jeff could fill this up later if it was like Sunspot or Nebula we had. Would you fine with that? But I think the key thing with Ebony Maw, like it was always okay in these decks, but now the fact that it's like a lot of these, a lot of your matchups are really just going to simply come, this is a bad draw, isn't it? It's simply just going to come down to having initiative for Eliath. I think it makes more sense than ever. Worth like mentioning Legion here gives us a lot of value on Necroshar. Pro-X to the left is an option. We could also like move the Jeff and Nightcrawler and go for Pro-X mid. Quite like the look of that. Got a lot of options here. That's for sure. Daredevil stall. Making the games last longer. Whoa, they snap. Brave. It's brave. I think we're going to be just fine here, you know. Blade goes middle, Morbius left, and Colleen left. So this Morbius is bloody huge, has to be said. Maybe I don't feel so good about my life. I could see us conceding this, actually. Let's really think about it. We also have the option of Jug, right? If we don't want to take the Pro X. I mean, they have 11 stats mid. Neither of these got the buff, so they're just... It's just 5 stats I'm moving in. So I have 10, which isn't enough. Alternatively... Try this. Which I have 10, 11, 13. I'm gonna go next. I don't think we had that one. Chat, any thoughts of lines we could have gone for? The whole, like, on turn 4 only playing Nebula with no Sunspot is probably what was costing us there. They had, like, very, very good amount of points to come down. I like the hand. I'm gonna snap it. Sunspot is just good. One thing I'm sad about in terms of Goliath is Jug feels a lot worse in this deck now. Like, Jug was so good before, but now, like... Oh, God. Oh, God. Can't be a bad thing, I think. Probably just play the Ebony more down the middle. Yeah, is that even true? Yeah, I mean, with New York. Of course, we could take a risky Pro X. We'll play it like this. We already snapped this one. Thanks, Langdon. Glad you agree. Actually, just call it a day there. Fair enough. Ebony Moore has performed well so far. Definitely not a snappable hand, this one. Not sure what to do with Ebony Moore here. I think we're going to go for it still. Yeah, I'm not sure about this. Especially with now the Storm looking really awkward. Go next. Morb on 2 is very scary for us anyway. Jury's very much out on Ebony Moore. I do think it's probably worth it though. So they draw Blade. How many cards do they have in hand? They have 5. I have 5. So they did draw their Blade. I have to say I like the look of my hand a lot. I think I'm happy to just say, like, let's make this the final game, you know? Do they play the Blade on 1? They don't. It's an absolute calamity. Such a nightmare, mate. Okay, well that helps us, doesn't it? Do we try and Storm? I'm not sure it's gonna go so well for us, actually. We could Storm on 4 and then Legion it. We'll just take the Jeff and we'll decide what to do. I mean, the fact that they go mid is actually really making this Storm more appealing. It's our only play to make anyway, so we're of course going to go for it. The concern I have is like Dracula going down left and then like Modok allowing them to just target Apocalypse, but of course if they have Swarm in hand, that's not even the case. Yo, Cashin, really good, thanks mate. There's the Dracula, which we definitely did fear. We have the Jug as an option. I think we can just take the Legion, right? Nebula's going to go twice. So she's going to be at 5 stats. We can move Jeff in. I think we're good here. Don't even need to win the left. Just win mid. We want to see Swarm in this hand. Nice. Whoa, Nebula didn't grow? I thought she would have grown that turn. I feel like she should be growing that turn because Legion overwrote Deep Space. I feel like I've been scammed. I'm not going to lie. We can move 5 points mid still anyway. Which puts us to 6 and then Nebula grows and then you win. Of course Dracula can hit the Swarm. Chavez or the Apocalypse. But this one's a win. Poggers. Let's take it for another run. Really like deck. Again, I think the Ebony Maw is like the card I'm most unsure on this one. I think in an unlife meta it's making more sense than before. The other question is, do we want to concede? Like, if we're conceding, now is the time to do so. I think this Jug 50-50 I really, really like. It's so good, 50% of the time. I don't think we want to play Nebula. I think we just do nothing. It's a Sunspot. That's pretty cool. Nice. Of course, it doesn't help that they're now winning Baxter Building. Don't really like my chances, mate. Neither player can retreat. They split the lanes, which seems curious. They do get us by a single point in 2 locations. Man, oh man. GG. My hand's pretty bad, but I'm gonna guess theirs pretty bad too, so I'm snapping. It's like a bluff snap. I can play both Thanos and Eliath. 1 for British cuisine, 10 being Indian food. How spicy this deck is. You know, okay. I don't get what this whole like lack of spices thing is. You do know that like a lot of Indian food, right, that you eat in countries which aren't India is British. Just saying. I mean, I don't want to like appropriate their culture, but that is kind of true. The British invented India. Yeah, that's basically what I was saying. I'm surprised they snap. I've kind of made my decision that we're staying in this one. I will say that the Power Stone going into Warrior Falls is pretty bad news for us. It's a lot of stones for a man that's going to snap. Good job. Good job. So we're going to start like on 4. Thanos on 5 probably, and then Alive on 6. This deck is like maybe a 6 out of 10 in terms of spiciness. It's not that spicy, to be honest. 6 is kind of generous too, honestly. Hey Breezy, we're chilling over here. We be chilling, we be vibing. Like, why did my man snap? Can anybody explain that? I'm thinking just Alive mid on the last turn is going to do it for us. GG. I'm gonna snap. I like the hand. I like the hand a lot. Not gonna risk dodgy locations here. We're in just like a position we don't need to risk it. Okay, we obviously want to start fighting for the middle, but probably I'm not going to play anything because of me wanting to time stone into Professor X. What a nice Nightcrawler that is, hey? I guess we're gonna Pro X the left, to be honest. The Nightcrawler's really scary though. Like, the Nightcrawler moving right is no joke. And yeah, I think the biggest thing we could change about this list is we could add a claw in, perhaps for the Psylocke. Okay, well, that's interesting. Certainly is interesting. I don't think we want a Professor X anymore. Surprise, surprise. We didn't get their Shang-Chi, which is quite scary, right? I guess we just take the Dino. We could maybe even X the Dino to protect ourselves from Shang-Chi. I forgot their Nightcrawler can move left as well. It's quite concerning, so Jeff is an idea. I can actually see the X being the play this turn. Then again, the Sunspot. Going for it, you know. Controversial plays. Don't really have much else to do though, right? We could have gone Jeff Storm. So Jeff of their own to the left, it looks like. That's brilliant. The Jeff of their own to the left is the problem here, but the good news is we can just win. No, we can't just win mid, can we? We do lose this one, unfortunately. Ah, no, we don't. They can't play anything left, so... The Jeff of Dreams, baby! Let's go! Victory. This guy's poor Green Goblin, mate. Feels bad for them. Doesn't feel bad, actually. I take it all back. Feels amazing. Alright. If I could snap, I would, but no point in doing so. We'll prioritize Nebula. The earlier she's down, the more points she can play for. Jeff is quite good. Hard to argue with that. We'll go Mind Stone. Soul Stone off to the right looks good. The dex curve is just way too high in it. We're always taking the Time Stone here. I guess we want the Power Stone on board. And I don't think we really care about where the Space Stone goes, honestly. Probably just to the left, right? Because it's not taking up board space. Gonna X on 4. Which is, of course, what Psylocke could have done for us as well if we had her. The big question is, where do we X? Interesting. I have a feeling like X actually gets destroyed by this, right? A pretty bad feeling that that's the case. Let's do this. I think it's like the only way X can get destroyed is with Clintar. Thanks, Irrelevant. Dude, you had no sub badge on the last one and now you have a sub badge. Make sure if you just subbed, the little pop-up will say share. Otherwise, I don't actually get alerted for it, believe it or not, which is kind of weird. Come on, something horrendous. It's winnable. It's pretty bad. That is pretty bad. Jeff on Nightcrawler is particularly good off the top here. As it's Jeff, we don't have to do it just yet. We could, of course, played the Psylocke, but doesn't do anything for us. And we want to just leave the Jeff as long as possible. Yeah, we could have moved Nebula left, that's true. Venomized Pro X would be terrifying. You can say that again. I am the juice of Thanos. Well, good thing they don't play Blue Marvel, right? Right? We didn't see it yet. Yeah, Dizu. You've got a bit of a delay there, mate. All good though. Okay. Got to win one of the next two. Definitely be good to find the reality stone to hit Shuri's lab after we've got some value off of it. Easy Pro X to the right. It's a no-brainer. I wasn't sure if it was going to be my play, but against Lockjaw, it's definitely the play. Captain So, thanks for follow. What's up? I guess we play it still. I could hit a stone off the top that costs 1, the space stone, and then my Thanos is huge. And we can play both. So it's definitely worth playing everything here. I forgot about Jeff, I'm not gonna lie, chat. I forgot about ye old Jeff. Well, that's quite a lot of extra energy, isn't it? Well, I think we're fine, to be fair. We're just alive. Oh, I can't even alive. If they have a life left, they lose still. Wow. So I actually lose to a life. But we have seen all their cards bar 1. Nice. Last call was Giganto. GG. Love gets us that. And Thanos lockdown, I would say, feels better than normal lockdown. That's my impression. But I was going to dispel Hulk and then you... Yeah, exactly. I don't think we even need the Hulk. Opponent snaps on Death's Domain. I mean, we have Jeff and Nightcrawler, so it's pretty fine for us and have a good hand. I can also storm it. Snap back, mate. I fear no man. I think this might be the deck, you know. No Hulk High Evo. I really just think Nightcrawler is that worth it in these lockdown decks. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's one of the most underrated cards in the game. Killmonger is just not very popular at the moment either, right? So... I guess the question is, do we play both? Play one? And we're going to want Cyclops down next turn, right? Let's just go both. We have the Nightcrawler now. Let's take Cyclops. Solar left is pretty intimidating in it. We could storm it to shut that down. We don't have the Legion Vault play. Yeah, I'm storming here simply just to shut down the Zola on Panther. Misty Knight buffing the Jeff and the Nightcrawler and the Storm can win us the left. We just float, to be honest. LOL! Get countered. Get countered, mate. Eesh. Not really sure how to play this one. Do we fight for the left ever? Pretty scared, actually. And we don't fight for the left. Misty Knight could do it for us, right? But most likely not. Nice. Well, that went well. Yeah, floating again could have been a shout because of Goliath, but I think this was fine. So card's just bad for me. Kind of need to be like somewhat need to show somewhat decent amount of respect to Electro players that snap so early as well, right? I'm gonna snap on them now. Misty Knight on 2. Nothing else. Just making sure we float 1 energy each time for the Misty Knight value. There will be float. Could take the Goliath like 1 and 3 that we hit them. I mean, it's really good 33% of the time. Could be a Galactus. Not sure that went so well for them, actually. Oh, Strange Academy's moving everything away, of course. Storm's kind of interesting. Does it work? Depends on the Misty Knight buffs, right? Basically. Misty Knight buffs this twice. We could also move Jeff out. I like it. And it's just to play Shavers on the last turn left, to the right, I think. Seems good. Nice. Leader does nothing. Second time we cut the leader. The only thing I feared here was like claw. Right. Very smooth though. Deck seems pretty damn good. I like this build a lot. I think this might be the best version of Lockdown. Alright, so overall, having played with all 3 of these decks, I have to say, disappointingly, my least favourite deck was just the normal, no Thanos, no high evolutionary deck, mainly just due to the Loki matchup. It felt really, really rough. My second favorite was the Thanos deck. Thanos felt great, just a little bit too inconsistent. And finally, probably to no one's surprise, apart from my own, high evolutionary is the best way to play Lockdown right now. And a lot of you will say, well, it always has been. I would disagree. I really don't think it was last season. But right now, it's good into Loki. Even without the Hulk, it feels solid. I think Thanos is very, very close behind it, and all three versions of the deck are great. The key deciding factor is that High Evolutionary is better into Loki, and Thanos is just a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like it if you did, and subscribe for more.